is the 23rd of August, and we just come to the 5th book, the last book of the Samyutta Nikaya. It's called the Mahavagga, the Great Vagga, the Great Book. It's called the Great Book because out of the 5 books of the Samyutta Nikaya, it's the biggest, and it consists of 1,197 suttas in this translation by Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, and nearly 1,200 suttas here in this 5th book. And unlike some of the other books, this one has 8 chapters out of the total of 12, which are quite sizable. Unlike some of the previous books, you only have 1 sizable chapter, but here you have 8 sizable chapters out of the 12. And in the Buddha's teachings, there are a set of 7 things said to be training factors at the core of the Buddha's teachings, dealing with meditation. And all these 7 sets are to be found here. Later commentarial books call them the 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas, the 37 requisites of enlightenment. And what are these? This book starts with the Samyutta number 45, first chapter. So Samyutta number 45 consists of the Noble Eightfold Path. And then chapter 46 concerns the 7 Bojjhangas, factors of enlightenment. And then 47 is about the Satipatthana, the 4 Satipatthana in 10 states of recollection. 48 is the 5 faculties, Pancha Indriyani. And then 49 is the 4 right efforts, Samappadana. 50 is the 5 powers, Bala. 51 is the 4 bases of psychic power, Iddhipada. So all these are found here. And like some of the other books, these are all important topics. Now, just to quote from Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi's notes, to gain irreversible release from suffering, we have to cut through the tangle of craving and clinging. And for this entanglement to be final and complete, we must extricate the most deeply buried root of all, namely ignorance. The direct antidote to ignorance is knowledge, not mere conceptual knowledge, but direct insight into things as they really are. And it was one of the Buddha's key discoveries that the knowledge needed for liberation can be developed. Such knowledge does not depend on divine grace or arise as a mystical intuition, but emerges out of a matrix of persistent spiritual practice governed by a precisely articulated ground plan. This course of practice is a process of self-cultivation, sustained by the unvarying laws of conditionality. The different factors embedded in the 7 sets are the qualities that need to be developed. They are the conditions which, when methodically generated and fortified, directly conduce to the arising of the liberating knowledge. These 7 sets of things that amount to 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas is stated in some sutta that when you perfect the Noble Eightfold Path completely, then all the 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas are also perfected. Actually, out of these 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas, the most important is the first chapter that we're going to study. That is the Magga-samyutta, because Magga means path and refers to the Noble Eightfold Path. If there is one way out of suffering, or only one path out of suffering, it is the Noble Eightfold Path, not the others. The Noble Eightfold Path is the most complete path. I read to you again this notes by Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi on page 1494 on Magga-samyutta. The best known of the 7 sets is of course the Noble Eightfold Path, announced already by the Buddha in his first sermon at Varanasi and repeatedly referred to throughout his discourses. The Noble Eightfold Path is given such prominence not only because it has an honored place as the fourth of the Four Noble Truths and is thus comprised within the chief doctrine of early Buddhism, but because it is the most comprehensive of the 7 sets. Its 8 factors have a wider scope than the others, making the practice of the Dhamma a complete way of life. The Eightfold Path spans the 3 trainings in virtue, sila, concentration, samadhi, and wisdom, panya. It guides action of body, speech and mind, and it transforms our ordinary conduct, thought and view into the conduct, thought and view of the noble ones. The other sets, though oriented towards the same goal, are more restricted in scope, pertaining almost exclusively to the meditative phase of the Eightfold Path. On page 14995. On gaining faith in the Buddha in its role as the Tathagata, the supreme guide to deliverance, the disciple must first arrive at a clear conceptual understanding of the teaching, particularly with respect to the principle of karma and its fruit, and the Four Noble Truths. This is the right view, samadhi, in its embryonic stage. Right view alters the disciple's motives and purposes, steering him or her away from sensuality, ill will and cruelty towards renunciation, benevolence and compassion. This is right thoughts, samma sankappa. Guided by right thoughts, the disciple undertakes the 3 ethical factors of the path: right speech, right action and right livelihood. Standing on this foundation of virtue, the disciple trains the mind by diligently and energetically developing the 4 intense states of recollection, satipatthana, that is, right effort applied to the practice of right recollection. When the effort bears fruit, the disciple enters and dwells in the 4 jhanas. This is right concentration, samma samadhi. This first chapter of the book, Magga-samyutta, comprises 180 suttas. Okay, now we'll go into the Magga-samyutta, page 1523. This is the 45th chapter of the Samyutta Nikaya. The first sutta I'll read, 45.1. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. There the Blessed One addressed the monks thus: Monks, noble sir, those monks replied. The Blessed One said, Monk, ignorance is the forerunner in the entry upon unwholesome states, with shamelessness and fearlessness of wrongdoing following along. For an unwise person immersed in ignorance, wrong view springs up. For one of wrong view, wrong thoughts spring up. For one of wrong thoughts, wrong speech springs up. For one of wrong speech, wrong action springs up. For one of wrong action, wrong livelihood springs up. For one of wrong livelihood, wrong effort springs up. For one of wrong effort, wrong recollection springs up. For one of wrong recollection, wrong concentration springs up. Monks, true knowledge is the forerunner in the entry upon wholesome states, with the sense of shame and fear of wrongdoing following along. Stop here for a moment. This sense of shame and fear of wrongdoing called hiri ottappa. For a wise person who has arrived at true knowledge, right view springs up. For one of right view, right thoughts spring up. For one of right thoughts, right speech springs up. For one of right speech, right action springs up. For one of right action, right livelihood springs up. For one of right livelihood, right effort springs up. For one of right effort, right recollection springs up. For one of right recollection, right concentration springs up. It's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha says that true knowledge is the entry upon wholesome states. True knowledge means knowledge of the Buddha's words found in the suttas. Because if you listen to the Buddha's words in the suttas, then you will have you will know what is hiri ottappa, a sense of shame. You will possess a sense of shame and fear of wrongdoing. And then also when you have true knowledge of the Buddha's words, you attain right view. Right view is the entry into the Noble Eightfold Path. Without right view, we have not entered the Noble Eightfold Path. And in Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, I think Sutta 117, the Buddha says that the Noble Eightfold Path must be cultivated in a systematic way. Must always start with right view. After right view, after you attain right view will bring you to right thoughts. And right thoughts will bring you to right speech, which will bring you to right action, which will bring you to right livelihood, which will bring you to right effort, and that will bring you to right recollection, and that will bring you to right concentration. So, right view is the entry into the Noble Eightfold Path. But for right view to arise, you must listen to the Buddha's words, which will give you true knowledge. Alright, that is the true Dhamma. 45.2. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling among the Sakyans, where there was a town of the Sakyans named Nagaraka. Then the Venerable Ananda approached the Blessed One. Having approached, he paid homage to the Blessed One, sat down to one side and said to him, Venerable Sir, this is half of the holy life, that is, good friendship, good companionship, good comradeship. And the Buddha said, not so, Ananda, not so, Ananda. This is the entire holy life, Ananda. That is, good friendship, good companionship, good comradeship. When a monk has a good friend, a good companion, a good comrade, it is to be expected that he will develop and cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is saying, good friendship, good comradeship is the whole of the holy life. That means you want to practice the holy life. Having a good friend, a good comrade is extremely important. This word in Pali, I think, is Kalyana-mitta. In Chinese, is translated as good knowing advisor, San Zhi. And the Venerable Ananda thought is 50% of the holy life has to do with a good comrade, but the Buddha says it's 100%. So, in our case, the best Kalyana-mitta we can have is the Buddha. Buddha's words is left for us, so that is the best Kalyana-mitta we can have. The only problem is sometimes when you study the Buddha's words, there are certain things you may not understand. So if you can find another companion who can guide you in explaining the Buddha's teachings and all that, then you are very lucky. Many of us, when we start off, we can't find somebody who can actually explain to us the Buddha's words. And how, Ananda, does a monk who has a good friend, a good companion, a good comrade, develop and cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path? Here, Ananda, the monk develops right view, which is based upon seclusion, dispassion and cessation, maturing in release. Similarly, he develops right thoughts, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right recollection, right concentration, which is based upon seclusion, dispassion and cessation, maturing in release. It is in this way, Ananda, that a monk who has a good friend, a good companion, a good comrade, develops and cultivates the Noble Eightfold Path. By the following method too, Ananda, it may be understood how the entire holy life is good friendship, good companionship, good comradeship. By relying upon me as a good friend, Ananda, being subject to birth are freed from birth. Being subject to aging are freed from aging. Being subject to death are freed from death. Being subject to sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair are freed from sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair. By this method, Ananda, it may be understood how the entire holy life is good friendship, good companionship, good comradeship. It's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha says that relying upon the Buddha, we rely upon the Buddha. So in other words, the Buddha is our best Kalyana-mitta. So we have to investigate the Buddha's words more. Later you find when you come to the chapter on the 7 Bojjhangas, there is a factor called investigation of Dhamma. The next sutta I'll read is 45.6. As Savatthi, then a certain monk approached the Blessed One, etc. Sitting to one side, the monk said, Venerable Sir, it is said, the holy life, the holy life. What, Venerable Sir, is the holy life? What is the final goal of the holy life? And the Buddha said, Monk, this noble eightfold path is the holy life. That is, right view, right thoughts, right speech, etc. The destruction of lust, the destruction of hatred, the destruction of delusion. This is the final goal of the holy life. So the holy life or the holy path that we need to practice is a noble eightfold path. And if we perfect the noble eightfold path, we will attain the final goal of destruction of lust, hatred and delusion, which will bring you to Nibbana. 45.8 at Savatthi, the Buddha said, Monks, I will teach you the noble eightfold path and I will analyze it for you. Listen to that and attend closely. I will speak. Yes, Venerable Sir, those monks replied. The Blessed One said, and what, monks, is the noble eightfold path? Right view, right thoughts, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right recollection, right concentration. This is the noble eightfold path. And what, monks, is right view? Knowledge of suffering, knowledge of the origin of suffering, knowledge of the cessation of suffering, knowledge of the way leading to the cessation of suffering. This is called right view. In other words, knowledge of the Four Noble Truths is right view. And what, monks, is right thoughts? Thoughts of renunciation, thoughts of non-ill will, thoughts of harmlessness. This is called right thoughts. And what, monks, is right speech? Abstinence from false speech, abstinence from malicious speech, abstinence from harsh speech, abstinence from idle chatter. This is called right speech. And what, monks, is right action? Abstinence from destruction of life, abstinence from taking what is not given, abstinence from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. And what, monks, is right livelihood? Here a noble disciple, having abandoned a wrong mode of livelihood, earns his living by a right livelihood. This is called right livelihood. Basically, right livelihood is earning a livelihood without harming others. And what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk generates desire for the non-arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome states. He makes an effort, arouses energy, applies his mind and strives. He generates desire for the abandoning of arisen, evil, unwholesome states. He generates desire for the arising of unarisen, wholesome states. He generates desire for the maintenance of arisen, wholesome states, for their non-decay, increase, expansion, and fulfillment by development. He makes an effort, arouses energy, applies his mind and strives. This is called right effort. And what, monks, is recollection? Here, monks, a monk dwells contemplating the body in the body, ardent, mindful, recollected, having removed covetousness and grief in regard to the world. He dwells contemplating feelings in feelings, mind in mind, Dhamma in Dhamma, ardent, mindful, recollected, having removed covetousness and grief in regard to the world. This is called right recollection. And what, monks, is right concentration? Here, monk, secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states. A monk enters and dwells in the first jhana, which is accompanied by thought directed and sustained, with delight and happiness born of seclusion. With the subsiding of thought directed and sustained, he enters and dwells in the second jhana, which has internal confidence and unification of mind, is without thought directed and sustained, and has delight and happiness born of concentration. With the fading away as well of delight, he dwells equanimous and recollected and mindful. He experiences happiness with the body. He enters and dwells in the third jhana, of which the noble ones declare, he is equanimous, recollected, one who dwells happily. With the abandoning of pleasure and pain and the previous passing away of joy and displeasure, he enters and dwells in the fourth jhana, which is neither painful nor pleasant, and includes the complete purification of recollection and equanimity. This is called right concentration. It's the end of the sutta. So here, all the 8 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path are explained, analyzed. Now we come to 45.11. Or maybe before I go to that, maybe I just recapitulate the Noble Eightfold Path. Right view is right view of the 4 Noble Truths. It's understanding 4 Noble Truths. And when you attain right view, that is Aryan right view, then you have entered the stream, you have become an Aryan. And then right thoughts are these 3 thoughts. Thoughts of renunciation, which is non-greed. Thoughts of non-ill will. The opposite is ill will or anger. Third is harmlessness, not harming anyone. And right speech has got 4 components. Abstinence from lying, from malicious speech, from false speech, and from idle gossip. And right action comprises 3 precepts. Abstinence from killing, from stealing, and from adultery. Right livelihood is earning a livelihood without harming others or yourself. And right effort is to prevent the arising of unwholesome states of mind. And if the unwholesome states of mind have already arisen, then to get rid of it. And also to develop wholesome states of mind if they have not arisen. And if wholesome states of mind have arisen, then we try to sustain it. The recollection is to remember to put your mindfulness on only 4 objects of recollection: the body, feelings, mind, and the Dhamma. Dhamma refers to the Buddha's Dhamma, Buddha's words. The right concentration refers to the 4 jhana. In the Buddha Suttas, everywhere you find right concentration always is the 4 jhanas. Even when sometimes it's mentioned one-pointedness of mind, even that one-pointedness of mind is explained as the 4 jhanas. There's nothing short of the 4 jhanas in right concentration. But nowadays there's some monks mislead people by saying that right concentration can be upachara samadhi or kanika samadhi and all that, which are never mentioned in the suttas. Now we come to 45.11 at Savatthi. The Buddha said, "Monks, I wish to go into seclusion for half a month. I should not be approached by anyone except the one who brings me alms food." "Yes, my noble sir," those monks replied, "and no one approached the Blessed One except the one who brought him alms food." Then when that half month had passed, the Blessed One emerged from seclusion and addressed the monks thus: "Monks, I have been dwelling in part of the abode in which I dwelt just after I became enlightened. I have understood thus: there is feeling with wrong view as condition, also feeling with right view as condition. There is feeling with wrong thoughts and right thoughts, feeling with wrong speech, right speech, etc. There's feeling with desire as condition. There's also feeling with thought as condition. There's also feeling with perception as condition." Stop here for a moment. This last part, feeling with desire as condition, the greed states, normal states of greed. Feeling with thought as condition probably refers to the first jhana. And feeling with perception as condition refers to the second jhana upwards to the base of nothingness. When desire has not subsided, and thought has not subsided, and perception has not subsided, there is feeling with that as condition. When desire has subsided, and thoughts have not subsided, and perceptions have not subsided, there is also feeling with that as condition. When desire has subsided, and thoughts have subsided, and perceptions have not subsided, there is also feeling with that as condition. When desire has subsided, and thought has subsided, and perception has subsided, there is also feeling with that as condition. There is effort for the attainment of the as yet unattained. When that stage has been reached, there is also feeling with that as condition. That's the end of the sutta. So I read this sutta mainly to let you see that sometimes the Buddha and his monks, they go into seclusion for a period of time where they don't want to meet anyone. And this is good practice. If we stay in the monastery, like during this Vasa, if any one of you want to go into a retreat for 1 or 2 weeks, then you can arrange to stay if possible. I don't know whether you have a place for you to stay alone. You can have somebody bring you food. You have the time, so probably I try to do that.